and don't talk to me about trust. I don't like it.
You know what? You should listen to your wife, man. She's right. You are an asshole, man.
Come here, give me a kiss. Come here. Come here. Hey. Hey.
Hey, fuck you, man! Who put this thing together? Me! That's who! Who do I trust? Me!
Fuck. Trust. I like that. That's... Fuck all of this. I need that shit. I don't need him. I don't need her. Fuck. I don't need nobody.
In his book, Ego is the Enemy, the author, Ron Holiday, he explains to us how the ego is stopping us from becoming successful, keeps us stagnant while we are successful, and also prohibits us from making a comeback when we hit failure. And in this video today, I will be referencing ego as the enemy and break it down into 3 phases in which the ego comes into our lives. The first phase is the inspiring phase. This phase takes place in the early days, in which we first begin to reach out for the goals and we create a plan and then we begin to work towards it, to become something, to obtain a certain goal or get a certain thing. The ego makes its presence in this phase and begins to make us believe that we are entitled to certain things, that we deserve more than we actually work for. It prevents us from taking entry-level work. It makes us feel like we should be at the top at our craft already, in the #1 spot. It holds us back from learning. It makes us believe that we already know information, that we know enough to already do it. It makes us not open up the book, not seek out the advice. It makes us not have a listening ear. The author Ron Holiday actually highlights a quote from the Greek philosopher Epictetus. You can't learn that which you think you already know. The ego shuts down opportunity and prevents you from becoming successful. And lastly, during this phase, the ego loves to talk. Talk about what you want to do. Talk about you doing this. Talk about you doing that. Talk about what you got in work. Talk about the talent, what you believe you can do, what you know you're going to do. And instead of actually putting in the work, the ego loves to hear itself talk. You can talk, and your body, sometimes your mind really think you're putting in the work because you're talking about, you're having conversations. And I'm not talking about speaking things into existence or going into the right company and mentioning your goals and dreams and getting good feedback for them. But I'm talking about just constantly talking about what you want to do, that I'm going to do this, that I'm going to start this business. I'm going to start this YouTube channel. I'm going to start this craft. I'm going to start studying for this. I'm going to become this. Like, you, at a certain point, you can't just keep talking about it. When you keep talking about, your body and your mind begin to really think you're making moves. But the ego loves to hear itself talk. The ego loves to just continue to talk about the goals, to sit back and just envision it. You really have to take action. Avoid the ego taking place in this phase of your life as you're aspiring for what you're trying to get to. That you don't just sit back and talk about it. That you don't block down information, that you don't just think you already should be somewhere in a spot that you haven't deserved yet. Moving on to the next phase, and that's the succeeding phase. See, once you put in the work and put in the time, you're going to become successful in something that you're doing. We begin to win in our competitions. We move up in our field of study. We win accolades and achieve things that get the attention and impress people. Instead of remaining focused and continue to build our success, ego wants us to become overconfident in our own ability. It makes us believe that we don't have to stay committed to them habits that got us to where we got to. We become too great, we become too good, we become too swift, too smart, too sharp. We become too good for such habits, our ego is telling us. It makes you complacent and entitled at this level and make you believe that you're invincible. It makes you overreach with your ability. Ego is your enemy, even with you being successful. You must constantly be learning. You got to stay a student at this game of life. And the great student absorbs continually throughout his life. We're moving on to the third and last phase, and that's the failing phase. Usually, but not all the time, this phase is caused by you having a great ego in your successful phase. See, when losses happen and a certain level of failure happens in our life, it's always someone else's fault. The ego tells us we're too great, we have too much skill, we got too much thinking power, we got too much ability, we're too smart and intelligent for us to cause this failure. Ego wants to point the finger. It's always somebody else around us. The ego tells us the product I'm trying to sell is good, even though I ain't put the right work into it. Ego tells us they should support just because I'm creating this. See, some obstacles and setbacks are unavoidable, but we do have certain setbacks and failures that come about as a result of our own actions. But the ego always got to point the finger. There's always something else is going on around us. Ego doesn't allow you to take responsibility for your setback, and this in turn cause you to continue to have multiple setbacks, never really getting over the hump again, never getting back to your successful peak in life, because once failure hit, you can never take true responsibility and get to the cause of what's really going on. It's always somebody else's fault. If you made it to the end of this video, I greatly appreciate you. My name is Daquan Skills. I'm an author and a speaker. I currently have 2 books out, The Gold Standard Mail and Keys to the Game. They're in the description box below. And for those of us who are willing to fight our ego in the beginning phases, as we set out and go for our goals, to keep our ego in check while we are at the peak of our success. And if we so happen to fail and we have to make a comeback, we're willing to look internally and see what we need to work on to come back better and stronger. Instead of pointing the finger, to those of us, I say, greatness awaits.